And we are live. Welcome, everyone, to the Radio Free Hub City newscast, live from Honeypot Acres Studio in Hagerstown, Maryland. I'm your host, DJ Warbuckler, and joined by me today is DJ BB. So what is the newscast? It's a podcast format show where we talk about local and global news that matters the most to Hub City. A full recording of this show will be available through Spotify as well as X for replay. Now, unlike our regular monthly newscast, tonight's episode is an in-depth look at a single topic important to Hub City residents. Before we get started tonight, I just want to give a huge shout out to all of our listeners. As of today, April 8th, we have 3,700 total listens on Spotify. Thank you so much for everyone who keeps tuning in, and we're going to keep making this content as long as you all keep coming back for more. But now, let's take a look at tonight's focus topic. Tonight, we are focusing on the homeless problem in Hagerstown, and as it also applies to statewide and probably national as well, because we can't just talk about Hagerstown's homeless population without acknowledging that it is a problem nationwide. So, BB, I know you said you were going to do some research prior to this for tonight, and I've got some research as well. I actually pulled up a state report on homelessness, which talks about 2020 and 2021 numbers for homeless in the state. But I want to let you get started. Why don't you tell me what you found in your research first?
Well, one of the things that I found the most, I guess, telling is that I just start looking up like what are common ways that people find themselves unhoused. And of course, you have your things like, addiction, things like that. But it also brought up domestic violence, because a lot of people, leave abusive relationships and find themselves with nowhere to go. Loss of employment, of course. Mental illness was on the list. And it seems like a lot of people, like, they don't have trouble. Well, I'm not saying they don't have trouble, but they don't seem to have as much trouble like finding medication or like telehealth therapy and stuff. But that is very limited, once a month, once a week, once every 2 weeks. And a lot of people seem to be saying that the medication that they're on, that kind of, sometimes they feel sick in the morning or they just have no energy. And also people have been having trouble getting their prescriptions. And a lot of times they'll go through withdrawals. And this can also lead to self-medicating. And we know that substance dependency is a factor. PTSD, so, veterans or people that have been through traumatic situations, they very often do not do well in apartments, townhouses, things like that. And then another thing was just really how much things cost. And they're saying that just because a person is employed in 2024, even if you're employed full-time at $15 an hour or thereabouts, you're still not making enough. People's gross pay isn't really enough to pay rent. And so the average rent in Washington County in 2019, it was $899. That was the average for a 2-bedroom. We are up to just about $1,400. So that is a lot. That's a large increase for a lot of people. And then when you factor in the utilities and food and everything on top of that, we're looking at a significant increase in what it actually costs to rent somewhere. So I guess that's kind of where I'd like to start is just realizing that just because someone is unhoused, whether temporarily or chronically, that person might be employed, but it does seem to get harder to keep employment because, you can't, you need a way to clean your clothes, you need a way to clean yourself, you need somewhere to cook dinner and things like that. And people just can't manage. And also groceries, the average price in Washington County, Maryland, that a family of 4 is spending on groceries, they are looking at about $1,100 a month. That's the average. So
Wow.
I mean, they said $300 a week. And that is the average for a family of 4. Some people have more than 4, some people have less, but that's about the average, $300 a week. So when you couple that with with the increase in rent prices, I mean, just rent and food alone, you're already well over $2,000 a month. And for people working at $15 an hour, I mean, that's the gross pay for 40 hours a week. So I guess that's a lot of the increase with people becoming unhoused in our area is really because the average, starting pay is $15 an hour. That's the minimum wage in Maryland. But if you work at that rate for 40 hours a week, that's full-time employment. That's barely enough for rent and food on average. So, you got to factor in phone bill, transportation, medical care, clothing, childcare, all of those things. And yes, there are assistance programs, but I mean, I was looking at EBT and things like that, and it seems like after the pandemic provisions ended, some families, like families of 3-4 people, they're only looking at anywhere from $59 to $200 to $300 a month. So, we know from the average grocery, what they're receiving in a month is only enough to pay for 1 week of groceries, which leaves the other 3 weeks on individuals. So, I mean, that was just some of the basic getting started details that I found, was that there are a lot of people that are either already unhoused or underhoused. And so I learned that means, like, okay, maybe you're not necessarily on the street, you have a roof over your head, but it's not your roof and it's not a permanent solution. Like, maybe you have friends or family that are letting you stay. And that is where you do find more people that literally have nowhere to go if there is any kind of substance dependency involved, because a lot of times people might have a friend or a family member that doesn't mind if they stay with them, but they say, I can't have any kind of substance abuse or dependency in my house or around my kids, or I'm on probation. So that is where we start to really see the substance abuse play a factor in becoming unhoused.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and so I've got some statistics here from the state of Maryland, and they do tie into what you were saying. Now, according to these statistics, which were from 2021, for the state of Maryland, the annual total, and this is people that either were assisted through homeless outreach, prevention, emergency shelter, transitional housing, or placed into permanent housing between July 1st, 2020 and June 30th, 2021. There were 23,243 people across the state assisted. Now, that's statewide, and they also said that there were 254 estimated homeless encampments statewide as well. Now, also in the same time period, the Maryland Office of the Medical Examiner recorded 243 individuals who were homeless died while being homeless statewide. 65% of those deaths were due to drug and alcohol use as the cause of death. So it is definitely it's definitely an issue for the homeless population, that they have a tremendous number of people that are homeless that die specifically due to drug and alcohol use.
Right.
Also at the same time, they found that between 2020 and 2021, the number of shelter beds across the state went down by 2%, and the number of traditional units available for housing homeless went down 3%. But it's important to remember that, and you touched on this as well, that there are a lot of people who are considered homeless, that they are considered homeless mostly because they don't have a permanent place to stay. And that's either they're couch surfing between friends and family, they bounce from one hotel to another. I know we have that issue here in Hagerstown extensively. And those aren't just individual people that's happening to. That's families. We actually have a significant number, and I don't have the number handy, but the Board of Ed keeps track of this number. I know we have a significant number of students in Washington County who are homeless, and their whole family is homeless. They still get to go to school. They still get to school, but the challenge is that they go to school, but sometimes they don't even live in the same place that they did the previous week. So that's very
Right.
disruptive for the educational environment for that student. And then also one other statistic that I do have here as well, 4.3% of the total homeless counted in 2021 were victims of domestic violence. So that's
Wow.
a significant issue as well. So we have a lot of significant problems associated with, causing people to become homeless. And in many cases, it's drug or alcohol abuse or domestic violence. And a lot of other times, though, like you said, is they just simply fall on hard times. Most
Right.
people in this country now are living paycheck to paycheck, and if they were to lose their jobs within a month, they're probably going to be homeless, and
Right.
that's sad. That's very unfortunate. So it's a very complicated issue. And I know you and I talked about, the whole proposed tiny homeless village, which was, well intended, but a terrible idea. Fortunately, the city has voted that down in a 3-2 vote. However, they are still going to continue exploring ways that they can address the homeless problem.
Right.
So that's good. And it definitely needs to be addressed, especially since we have the help me out here. What's the organization? Salvation Army. Salvation
Correct.
Army closed their shelter, and then most of the other shelters in the Washington County area in Hagerstown are only for winter months, which
Right.
means that once it gets to a certain temperature, okay, that's it. Shelter is closed, and that's because of limited funding. That's really what that is. That's a funding issue.
It's also the same time of year, when the temperatures change. That's also when like if you're behind on your utility bills, your electric bill, your gas bill, or whatever, they tend to not cut it off in the winter months when it's very, very cold. But as soon as spring temperatures start to come back up, there are people that are months behind and have to figure out how to pay, at least a major portion of their utility bill, or else they're not, that, like you said, you're going to have an entire paycheck just go to make sure your electric stays on, and then that can't go to rent or groceries. And I also wanted to point out, with the numbers of people that were homeless during the years that you mentioned, we also should remember that there was an eviction moratorium during those years. So after that ended, and now that people can be evicted for non-payment of rent again, I'm assuming that we're going to see that data change dramatically.
Yeah.
Because
and so actually the state says that they saw an actual decrease in the number of homeless during the pandemic, and they said that was absolutely due to the federal assistance. So I don't have any updated numbers after 2021, unfortunately, but I suspect you're right. I suspect that number is probably going back up.
And then with the hotels, I think that a lot of people, they probably would stay put if they could, but you're not allowed to establish residency in the state of Maryland at a hotel or a motel, unless it is specifically like a short term. A lot of the hotels will have extended stay, but still, that's only a month or two. That's not, you can't establish residency. So there's a lot of times where people might be in a place where they would love to stay until they could save up some money, they could find a job, they could enroll in school. But if you have to move every so many days, then you might wind up on the other side of town. There might be nothing available in your price range, nearby. So I imagine that makes it very, very difficult to get ahead at all.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So now actually, okay, so looking at this, I might have, I'm looking through this data here. It looks like there might be some additional data here, and I'll look at this additionally while you talk about stuff some more. But it looks like that the state of Maryland does have some statistics that are based upon what county homeless are in. But with that said, it looks like that they are grouping in Washington County with other counties because of the I guess the low number of people that are in just Washington County. So I guess they're including Washington, Garrett, and Allegheny counties all in one statistic. So I got to look at that a little bit more to make sure I'm right on that before I send those numbers out. But it breaks my heart because there's two different groups of homeless that I see in this area. One is the group of homeless that they are staying homeless by choice. Okay. And that is they are specifically, they're well, I don't know if necessarily by choice is the right way to look at it, but they are staying homeless mostly due to a drug or alcohol addiction, where there's nowhere they can go, because wherever they want to go, they have, they're like, no, I don't want to give up my drugs and alcohol. I don't want to get clean. But then there's another group and this group, in my experience and I've talked with homeless in this area, by the way, the other group is a group where they don't have the drugs and alcohol issues. They've just fallen on hard times. They're trying to get back on their feet, but they've found themselves in a perpetual debt, basically. So that's the second group that I actually kind of feel like that second group gets less attention than they should, because these are the people that don't want to be homeless. But we focus so much on the ones that have the drug and alcohol issues. We don't spend the time and amount of effort that we need to help the ones that are genuinely trying to not be homeless anymore. Do you agree with that? I know I think you said that you've actually got a homeless camp near you, don't you?
So I know Reach has a day resource center that's open Monday through Thursday in the spring and summer from 9 to 1. And you can take a shower, you can check your email, things like that, charge a phone if you have one, get hygiene supplies, things like that. But so the other thing that I looked into was, yes, we have the county commuter. And it's very affordable, especially for seniors and students and persons with disabilities. But they only go to a specific route. And so it can be really tricky if you are a person that's looking for resources, or you're wanting to get a job or something. It is very difficult, especially if you are downtown. There's not really a grocery store within walking distance, you know what I mean, of the downtown residential. There's a few smaller grocery stores, but there's not, you got dual highway, that's not really safe to walk down. So I know that I've spoken to someone at Reach before, because they have financial literacy classes, and you can take them online at the library, things like that. And they kind of, it seems like when people are receiving vouchers for food pantries or EBT, things of that nature, you can use your EBT card, as long as it's not like hot prepared food. There are several places like Sheetz, Spire, Stop and Go, places like that, where you can use those cards. And so for a lot of people, if they don't have a stove, if they don't have pots and pans, if they don't have milk and butter, a box of macaroni and cheese, or a package of ramen, or even a can of soup is nice, but if you don't have a can opener, you can't. So they found that a lot of people will be like, okay, well, I'm just going to go to Sheetz and get a sub and some chips. It's pretty affordable. It is, but it's not as affordable as being able to grocery shop and cook for yourself. And so we know that these people are already not getting enough money to make it through the month. So they're just running out of food faster. So at the ends of the month, you tend to see more people really, really in need. And even if they try to budget or save their money, there just isn't enough on their cards for these sorts of things. And they can't really, we're kind of in a food desert down there, really. I mean, and it's not Hagerstown. I mean, there's plenty of places where if you don't live right downtown, like Smithsburg or Boonesboro, if you don't live within walking distance of the grocery store, I mean, where do you go?
Yeah. And so, and that's a problem that I'm going to say that the more rural parts of the whole state have.
Right.
So I found here actually how Washington County is grouped in with the statistics here, and they have something in the statistics called the Maryland Balance of State Continuum of Care. Okay, and that is grouping in Western Maryland, which is Garrett County, Allegheny, Washington County, Cecil County, which is the northeast part of the county, and then Charles, St. Mary's, and Calvert counties, which is the southernmost parts of the county on the west side of the bay.
Southernmost part of the state or county?
I'm sorry?
I said southernmost part of the state or county?
Southernmost part of the state, sorry.
Oh, well, okay. I was just, I didn't know if you meant you had part of the county in there or not. Okay.
No. So here we have these 7 different counties that are all being grouped together. And I kind of understand why they're doing that, because they're all very rural part of the state, but at the same time, it's vastly different for homeless in Western Maryland to get help compared to homeless in Northeast Maryland or Southern Maryland. It's going to be different challenges because you've got different geographic distribution. But so the numbers for those 7 counties combined, which it kind of bothers me that they're doing it this way, is 2,978 total for those 7 counties. So we have no idea what percentage of that is Washington County or not. So that right there in itself is a problem, because okay, so we're not even getting an accurate count of how many are in Washington County, so we don't know how much to allocate to Washington County. That's I don't like that. I don't like the way that we're handling this problem on a state level. And once again, here we have the Western Maryland is pretty much getting excluded from everything else, where the Central Maryland and even the Eastern Shore is all getting the focus that they need. So once again, we've got the state is dropping the ball and screwing over Western Maryland.
Yeah. And another statistic that I personally found really interesting, I was looking at the median income for Maryland, and then I noticed that it said in Washington County, the average commute for people that are making the average annual salary is 32 minutes. So that means that people that are making average pay generally have to commute 32 minutes to get to those jobs. And so I'm imagining that if you don't have access to transportation on a daily basis, it is probably very difficult to find employment in even the average range. And for Washington County, it is saying that 13% of the population is homeless currently. So that
Wow.
is, that's a huge number. That's a huge number. But again, if you really consider the downtown residential area, I can see how people would need to commute 30 minutes ish to work.
Well, okay, and let's talk about that for a minute. So that's definitely one of the challenges here in Washington County, is there is a significant amount of problems with jobs, in that most people are absolutely commuting to Frederick. And this is one of my biggest problems with when they wanted to extend the MARC line, was, we're going to extend the MARC line to Hagerstown so people can take the train to Washington, D.C. Well, the people in Hagerstown area, most of them don't go to Washington, D.C. for work. They just go to Frederick County.
Right.
But there's no public transportation between Washington and Frederick counties. Right.
And, again, even if if you're wanting to get a vehicle and drive yourself, or I also learned that there are a lot of people that are living in a vehicle. Like, they have a vehicle, they don't have an apartment or a house, but they have a vehicle. Well, if you can't get to the DMV to renew your tags, or if you can't get to the Social Security Administration or Vital Records, so you need a birth certificate. Well, what address are you going to have that mailed to? How are you going to get your Social Security card without showing your birth certificate or your ID? How are you going to pay for that? And then when you somehow manage to get both of those items, how are you getting to the DMV, and how are you paying for your, your license services or even your identification purposes? Because I really can't think of a whole lot of places that are going to hire someone if they don't have reliable transportation, if they don't have photo ID, if they don't have an address to put down. I just don't see where the jobs are for even people that are willing to work very hard to work themselves out of a bad situation, I mean, if you can't take a shower and you're not going to have clean clothes and you don't even know how you're going to get there, who's hiring that person?
Yeah. Well, and okay, so let me tell you exactly how the cycle of homelessness perpetuates here in Washington County. Okay, and this is a true story. A friend of mine, he fell on some hard times, and he's part of it was that he got into disagreement with his girlfriend, and he was living with her at the time, also the mother of his child. Well, needless to say, he ended up becoming homeless, living out of his car. He's still working. Okay, he's absolutely still working. He's still going to work every day, just living out of his car. And in fact, he was actually also doing Uber Eats deliveries on the side just to try to make extra money and pull himself out of this rut. Well, what happened? Well, he's on hard times, and somebody gets into a fight with him at work. Well, he can't afford to defend himself. He has to rely on a public defender, and he ends up getting assault charges and gets 2 years in prison. And he's in there right now. He just started his sentence here the past couple weeks. But now he's not going to have anything left now when he gets out of prison. He's not going to have his car anymore. He's not going to have anywhere to go. And he doesn't have any family in the area anymore. So what do you do? I mean, now he's going to end up in a tent somewhere.
That's another thing. There's a lot of people that are, employers kind of have the pick of the litter right now, really. I mean, there are people that have, they have no criminal record. They've got a great driving history. They've got a college degree, and it is going to be very, very difficult for anybody that has any kind of a record. And that goes for housing too, because there are a lot of subsidized housing communities or other kinds of communities where your rent is assisted or a portion of it is paid for you. And a lot of that is income based. So everybody thinks that everyone is just getting free housing, and that's not the case. It's usually based on your income. So if you can't find a job, like if you don't already have a job, those places are not available to you, because those places are for people that are working and are able to pay a portion of their rent.
Yeah. So ultimately, and I guess the real question is, how do we fix it? One of the biggest things that I think that would definitely fix it would be better nonprofit outreach. I know we have some nonprofits that are helping, but at the same time, those nonprofits can only do so much because they have limited funds. And if people don't donate a money, then they can't really help. And that was actually what resulted in the Salvation Army closure, was lack of funds for their shelter. So
Right.
So now they still have other programs, but their shelter is closed.
Right.
So the biggest takeaway I'm going to say on this is, if you can afford to, I got to start donating to some of the local charities that actually do homeless assistance.
Right.
And then the other thing that I think that we really need to have a serious conversation in this county about is that there is no homeless shelter assistance for single fathers with kids. There's assistance out there for single mothers with kids, but there's none out there for single fathers with kids, and that's not fair. That's not fair at all.
Right. And I mean, I know CASA will help fathers, but that CASA is reserved for victims of abuse, which we are aware that people are victims of abuse, but we certainly hope that people are not. And that's another statistic, is that this is all resulting in increased reports of domestic violence. And the theory behind that is that, people know that they have nowhere else to go, and so they're staying in situations that may necessarily not be healthy or safe, because they feel like, this is really terrible, but it's probably better than being on the street. And so, I mean, that's a really scary thing, to think that people might be in unsafe situations. And then I was kind of looking for other counties and towns that have similar demographics to our area, to see what what people have tried and what has worked and what hasn't. And I found a community in Florida that seems to have some success where, like a lot of the jobs that the county pays for on a seasonal or annual basis, like trimming trees, picking up trash, anything like that. So they are actually hiring unhoused people. Like they can sign up for this program, and it reminded me very much of like a temp agency, only it's through the actual municipality. Okay, and so they just show up in the day, and they, you sign up for what job that you would like to do or you're capable of doing, and they pay them on a prepaid card, much like an unemployment card or an EBT card. Um, and so I think like that's really awesome because it's saving the county money because it's a minimum wage. You're not paying a landscape engineer maybe to supervise, but just for the day-to-day labor. They are hiring people that really don't have anything else that would prohibit them from being a good employee. They just don't have anywhere to go, and they provide them clean t-shirts, and then at the end of the day you just turn your dirty clothes in and they launder them for next time. And it seems like that's working out really well. I think it would be really cool if we could. I realize it's a lot of red tape, a lot of planning, probably a lot of oversight, but that is one thing that they have had success with that everyone involved seems quite happy with.
Well, and that's more than just giving someone a place to stay. And I think that's probably the big thing is, if we're going to break the cycle of homelessness, we need to provide more than just, okay, here you go, here's a place you can stay, and now figure out the rest on your own. No, we need to be able to help them with finding jobs. We need to be able to help them with transportation, and there are local programs that do that. Thank God there's local programs that help with that. Goodwill, I know that they do a lot of job training programs for that, and also even help with finding the transportation to those jobs. So, thank goodness for that. But,
Yep.
At the same time, those programs only work if people donate to them, and I can tell you one of the things that Goodwill has on that is if you, now it's actually been a while since I've been to a Goodwill, but the last time I went in there, if you go to the Goodwill and you at checkout, they'll ask, do you want to round up your bill to the nearest dollar and have those funds go towards their job training program?
Yes,
and I've always said yes. I've always said yes on that because I have seen firsthand what that program can do.
Right.
Now, I haven't been through the program myself, but I have met and talked with the people that have been in the program. And one of the things that they do is they have their cleaning service that they do. And
Yeah.
I've talked with some of the people that, work for that cleaning service because they've cleaned buildings that I've worked in before. And, it's great. But then, of course, the other challenge, though, of course, is, some of the homeless definitely do have criminal records. And, you need to have jobs available for those that have criminal background. You need to have jobs for them. Now, fortunately, there are some local employers that will do that as well.
Right.
And that might actually be a good resource for us to put together an article on. So I don't know if you'd want to do that or not, but
Sure.
off the top of my head, I can tell you that AT&T does.
Yeah.
AT&T will absolutely hire folks, especially to work in their kitchens. And I think there's other local places that do as well. So, it's, really good that we have those kind of programs that are employers voluntarily helping to solve the problem. And by the way, I have a friend that sent me a message on that because he's listening to the show right now. So big shout out to him. I'm not going to drop his name, but big shout out to him for bringing that up and asking me to mention it on air. So yeah, awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so the same Florida town, they're also extending, if you are convicted of an offense like a traffic offense, or you're behind on your child support, anything that is where you come away with a fine as your punishment, okay? Like you were found guilty or you pled guilty and they give you a fine, you automatically have the option to do community service instead. And they said that this really helps people because that's how a lot of people get behind, because maybe they got a ticket, last October. This doesn't make it to a court until April, and then all of a sudden, you've got hundreds of dollars, sometimes even thousands of dollars to pay. And if you don't make those payments, you do go to jail, and then you've lost your job. You've probably lost your place. So this is a way that they're keeping people in their homes, at their jobs, and out of jail, is that you have the option to do community service to work off those fines. And they're saying that is a really, really helpful thing to implement.
Well, and that would be something I'd absolutely advocate for here, and then also, brings up the day reporting center. Okay,
Yes.
so and now the day reporting center isn't necessarily for homeless, but at the same time, it definitely helps with the drug and alcohol addiction issues, where instead of doing jail time, you go to the day reporting center at, over at the Washington County Sheriff's Department, and they help with treatment programs. So there's absolutely, there's programs available, but at the same time, those programs are only going to be as effective as people put into them. And we have to.
Are you responsible for your own transportation to the day reporting center?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I suspect you probably are. But also at the same time, I suspect that for the day reporting center as well, that's not really as targeted towards people that are homeless as much as it is just people who have, they screwed up. They know they screwed up, but they're still working or whatever.
Right.
And there's also a work release program as well, with the local prisons that allows them to go to work release, work while they're in prison, and then report back to the prison. So that kind of thing can help solve the homeless issue, because that way, okay, hey, they're actually earning some money while they're in prison, and then they'll actually have some money when they get out, hopefully. But it's all. We have to compound all of it. We have to get it all to work together, and it's all a very complicated mess of gears, and we have to get it to function correctly. So,
especially because,
and by the way, I'm saying prison, but it's whether it's whether it's the regional prison for MCI, or the Washington County Detention Center, which would be more jail, not prison.
Right.
Both of these, I believe, have these programs. So it's important that, we continue to bring and shed light on that. We do have some local efforts to fix this.
And I think that's also where the financial literacy programs can be very useful, because a lot of times, especially if people have been incarcerated for any period of time, like even the last few years, let's say you went in 2019 or 2020, and you get out and everything costs, at least 25% more than it did when you went in. Everything does. And so, and they say that incarcerated people, like, yes, that's great if you're at a work program, whatever, you get out, you have some money. Okay, but then you're going to have to get a place. You're going to have to get a vehicle because you weren't paying for any of those things. And then you very, very likely have probation, parole, or house arrest fees to pay on a monthly basis as well. So, and again, that's one of those things where if you don't pay your probation fines and fees, right back in you go. So I think that's a very tenuous time for a lot of people, because they not only have to pay what the rest of us have to pay to live. And I'm not saying it's not, for people that truly were guilty. I mean, that's how it goes. But also, we need to be aware that that's how a lot of people, I think, resort back to petty crime and things of that nature, because they have, life is expensive. And that I think that would also help, just Americans in general. I mean, that is wild to me that the average household, we're looking at $300 a week just for groceries. But I gotta say, I mean, I budget like, to the T, and that's about what we're looking at. And I have to say, I agree with that average. So, I mean, that's $1,200 a month just for food. Then at least, 13, I think it was 13.4 is the average rent, for a 2-bedroom. So, I mean, you're looking at $3,000 right there, at least, that the people need to come up with a month. And, if you're working 40 hours a week at $15 an hour, your gross pay is not even that much.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and, there's definitely a challenge, and also, reentry programs absolutely need to have more attention paid to them too. And thank goodness for those local employers that, that are actually working to help with that. So, Yeah.
So very much.
So it's sad that sometimes people's life is actually going to be harder after they get out of prison, because then they don't know what in the world they're going to do.
Not just people in prison, but even people on assistance programs. I know I see all the time people say, like, well, why don't you just go get a job? Or, people are sitting around all day doing nothing and the government just pays all their bills and la-di-da. And that's not the case. And a lot of times the minute people start working, their benefits drop dramatically or even to zero, and they can't afford to live. So sometimes getting a job can actually be people's undoing with the way that things are. And I really see why, I think it's kind of ignorant to tell somebody, well, you look well enough, just go get a job. That's not taking into account any mental health struggles that the person might be experiencing. It's not taking into account any substance dependency issues. And it's not just a matter of like, well, stop doing drugs. I mean, there are a lot of people that get so sick that they could even die, even if they say, I'm going cold turkey, I'm not doing this, I don't want to do this anymore, I want to change my life. You can actually die if you just stop drinking alcohol or stop doing certain drugs. I mean, that requires care and medical supervision. So, I just hope that people listening realize that and think about these things. Like, you can't just go get a job. It's not that simple.
Yeah, absolutely.
People need help getting jobs, especially because most jobs these days, you're expected to apply online. So, if you don't have internet, good luck.
Yeah, and that goes back into the mental health issues too. So we need to make sure we have better mental health care for these folks. I can tell you, if I was homeless, it would probably screw me up pretty bad.
Yeah.
I would definitely need some mental health help, even if I wasn't didn't have any issues becoming homeless. Becoming homeless would cause me mental issues. So yeah, absolutely great. All right, so we're actually like way over the amount of time that I was expecting us to do this. I was shooting for about 30 minutes. We're at like 45 minutes now. So we probably want to go ahead and wrap this up. Final thoughts from you, BB, before we call this a night?
So if anybody listening knows who we need to get in touch with, or of any programs that we didn't mention that we were asking about or addressing, if people could just shoot us a link or give us a tip, we would love that, because we would love to put in kind of a comprehensive little guide or map so that people can find all these different resources in one central location for free. I think that would be very helpful. So anybody listening, we'll do some research on our own, but if something popped in your head that we missed or don't know about, please let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm actually already talking with one person over Facebook Messenger about some of the issues, and I think that let's go ahead and plan on trying to put a guide on local resources that can help people if they're concerned that they may become homeless, or if they are homeless and they need to be able to get themselves out of their current situation. I can tell you one other resource that I can think of is area church associations. I know they have a lot of assistance programs as well. So, but like I said, we'll put together a guide on this. I think this is a really good topic, a really good conversation. I really appreciate, I know we have multiple people that are listening anonymously, and I get that. I'm okay with people listening anonymously and just shooting us privately feedback. That's fine. By all means, please feel free, because if you have something to contribute to the conversation, but you don't want to actually speak up about it publicly due to whatever reason, that's perfectly fine. Please feel free to do that for our future episodes as well.
Right.
So, but with that, I really appreciate everyone listening tonight. That is all for tonight's newscast. So on behalf of BB and myself and all of the Radio Free Hub City family, thank you for listening tonight, and we hope you'll join us next time. And don't forget to visit our website for more local and national news at radiofreehubcity.com. Thank you for listening.